So glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you this Monday. A blast of heavy snow bulldozes travel plans for Calgarians.
Because it's an act of God, they can't do any accommodations.
Canceled flights and collisions as the nasty system moves east.
Of the 3 people that were unaccounted for, 2 have been located deceased.
What else investigators reveal about a devastating house fire? Plus, the life and legacy of a reggae music legend.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Calgary's first full blast of snow came in with a vengeance today, temporarily halting arrivals and departures at the international airport this morning and creating a dangerous and chaotic commute for drivers. And snowfall warnings have been issued for other parts of southern Alberta. CTV's Tyler Barrow is in Calgary with a picture of the heavy snow that slammed that city. Hey, Tyler.
Sandy, for many Calgarians, it was a rough commute heading into work. Tow truck companies were busy and passengers at the airport had flights disrupted. For Calgarians, it was a wake-up call that winter is fast approaching. According to Calgary Police Service, there were 186 collisions on the roads from midnight to 11:30 a.m. 16 resulted in injuries. The city's fleet of snowplows were out in full force clearing roads, but they couldn't keep up with all the snow as vehicles of all sizes became stuck and left calling for help. One company, Cheap Towing, had received approximately 25 calls by 10:30 a.m.
We got a bunch of different calls. It's either ditch pullouts, accident calls, or people that are just stuck because they didn't get their winter tires on.
And here at YYC Airport, travelers were feeling Mother Nature's first big hit of winter. These passengers had their WestJet flight canceled to Victoria. They say they have not been rescheduled yet.
We booked a hotel, so that's an inconvenience, another expense.
Environment Canada is forecasting 10 to 15 centimeters of snow to fall throughout the day. Sandy?
Tyler Barrow. Now, major snow is also expected to hit other parts of Alberta and also move east and affect Ontario and Quebec, along with a looming polar vortex, which means everyone should also be prepared for cooler temperatures. But hey, it is November. So it's why we asked CTV's Atlantic meteorologist, Kaylin Mitchell, to weigh in on this system and what it means. Hey, Kaylin.
Thank you, Sandy. A quick recap of what the polar vortex is. It is a semi-permanent area of very cold air that typically circulates around the pole. Now, every once in a while, it will weaken, and if the jet stream's in the right position, it'll break down to the south, bringing about some of the coldest temperatures of our fall, winter, and spring seasons. And we're seeing some signs that's what's going to happen here towards the end of this week, with part of the polar vortex breaking down through areas of Nunavut into northern areas of Manitoba, northern areas of Ontario, and northern areas of Quebec. And once that bitterly cold air is in place, it looks like it'll linger up until around the middle part of next week. Now, the other thing that this very cold air can do, besides driving temperatures way down, is that it can fuel early season heavy snowfall events. We've already had a couple. That same system that brought some heavy snow through parts of southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan will go on to strengthen and bring a heavy snowfall event through the middle part of this week through areas of northern Ontario, especially north of Lake Superior, where Environment Canada has already issued some winter storm watches. Sandy.
All right. CTV's Kaylin Mitchell. Thanks, Kaylin. Members of an intergenerational family are trying to cope with the devastation caused by a deadly fire that raged through their home in a community west of Toronto. Several members of the tight-knit family were killed. A baby didn't survive. And today we heard from police as they sift through the evidence. CTV's Heather Wright is in Brampton. Okay, Heather, such a tragic situation. What's happening at the house?
Well, Sandy, as you can see, heavy equipment has been brought here to this home in Brampton, Ontario, which has now been demolished following that devastating house fire Thursday morning. Today, investigators confirmed 4 people died here on scene, 3 women and a toddler, while a baby later died in hospital. Now, the cause of this fire is still under investigation, but today police said it is not considered suspicious.
At this point, I can confirm that there has been nothing overtly to indicate any type of criminality here. I can confirm that 4 people lost their lives on scene here, and it's 3 adult females and a young toddler. Sadly, one of the patients at hospital of the 4 was pregnant. She underwent emergency surgery delivered that baby, and that baby has since passed.
Today, the Ontario Fire Marshal said smoke alarms were found in the rubble of this home, but at this point, it's not clear if they were working, something that will be part of this investigation. Well, last week, Brampton's mayor said 11 people had been living in this home and that it was not licensed to have that many people living under one roof. Sandy.
Okay, CTV's Heather Wright. Now, a community in Quebec is also reeling from the loss of 2 young men after an incident involving a Montreal Express train. A third person was seriously injured. The trio was hit while reportedly crossing the tracks. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin is at the site of the accident. Geneviève?
Yes, Andy, there's a makeshift memorial here at the light rail train station where the 2 young men, 2 brothers, were killed. Now, there are fences here all around, but on Saturday at 3 a.m., a group of young men walked across a highway and the tracks, and the men were hit by an empty train. At that time, the REM, as it's called here, was not in service, but the fully automated system with no drivers or attendants on board often runs tests and maintenance. The REM operator, Pulsar, issued a warning today saying, "We remind everyone of the importance of respecting safety zones and never accessing the tracks for your own safety," and added that this is why the entire REM property is fenced. Now, the Transportation Safety Board has recorded 46 trespassing fatalities so far this year, but that doesn't include all LRTs, which are often not federally regulated. The small community that was home to the young men Simon and Samuel Brochu is reeling from the loss.
C'est un vrai drame, là.
Both were hockey players in the town of Saint-Rémy and were out celebrating Samuel's 22nd birthday. Friends have described the 2 young men as hardworking and very close. The Quebec police force is still investigating to find out exactly how this happened. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin. Well, it's been in the works for a while, and now we know that a memorandum of understanding on energy and climate change will be signed later this week between Alberta and Ottawa, and it is expected to pave the way for a new oil pipeline. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver now on the potential deal and the potential showdown between Alberta and BC. Annie.
Sandy, the Prime Minister says there is the prospect for an agreement. He describes the talks as constructive but not finalized just yet. Another handshake between Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected this week. And with that comes the conclusion of talks about a deal that will set the framework for an oil pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast.
Big picture, what we're looking to do and what we are doing is a series of major investments, nation-building projects that make our country stronger, more independent from the United States.
Sources say the memorandum of understanding that's expected to be signed this week will push the pipeline project forward and will necessitate some kind of carve-out from the tanker ban along the BC coast. It's also expected to scrap the planned federal emissions cap, bolster carbon capture, and change the industrial carbon tax. Many environmental groups say the cost of a new oil pipeline isn't worth it.
Definitely not enough is happening here. This is not striking a balance. It is not a grand bargain at all. It's a raw deal.
BC's Premier David Eby is also against a new oil pipeline. Eby says he told Carney today that if it goes ahead, coastal First Nations need to approve and the use of taxpayers' dollars should be limited.
My message to the Prime Minister was that either there should be a cap on the taxpayer dollars invested in this project, or there should be a prohibition on taxpayer dollars invested in this project, or if it is going to be taxpayer funded, that British Columbia get access to a $50 billion federally funded project as well.
Alberta plans to leverage private sector capital to get this pipeline built. But the MOU doesn't guarantee that will ever happen. The federal government says it wants the backing of British Columbia, Sandy, as well as Indigenous communities along the route.
Okay. All right, thank you, Annie. The Prime Minister has returned home from an overseas trip to the G20 in South Africa, his plane taking off after Mr. Carney announced new trade negotiations have been launched with India. Carney sat down with President Narendra Modi in Johannesburg, the two sides opening talks towards a new economic partnership. Mark Carney claims the potential deal could more than double trade between the countries to $70 billion. And it comes after years of strained relations over allegations that India is linked to criminal activity on Canadian soil, something that country denies. Now, as for tensions between Canada and the U.S., many snowbirds say they are not ready to pack up and head south for the winter. Others are not planning to visit family for Thanksgiving. Several American politicians in Canada this weekend marked the strained relations. So let's bring in CTV's John Venevalley-Rao in Toronto with more on that. Hi, John.
Sandy, here at Pearson in Toronto, it's a busy time for travel to the United States with U.S. Thanksgiving on Thursday. But this year, the travel numbers are likely to be down as many Canadians continue to choose to avoid going to the U.S. And the state of Canada-U.S. relations being talked about this past weekend in Halifax at an international security conference. Several American senators calling Trump's tariffs a mistake and noting how many Canadians are responding negatively to them on a personal level.
But the deeper problem is the cultural break. The idea that Canadians now don't think of Americans as their friends and their neighbors, but as an adversary.
One of the things that I think is very important about us being here, a bipartisan delegation, is to make it very clear to our Canadian friends that we're your friends, and we're going to do everything we can to put things back to the wonderful relationship that we've always had with Canada.
And many travelers say they are feeling uncomfortable about going to the States this winter, with the latest numbers from StatsCan showing in October, return trips by car from the U.S. were down 30% compared to a year ago, and by air, they fell 24%. That trend expected to continue.
Yeah, if we can stay clear, we certainly avoid it.
If there is a possibility of some resumption of normalcy, I think it's going to take a really long time. I mean, some of the cuts have been pretty deep.
Many Canadians say their top reason for avoiding the U.S. is a resolve to stand up for Canada. Still, some of those U.S. senators remain optimistic the damage to relations can eventually be fixed, with one of them, an independent, calling the tariffs ridiculous. Sandy.
Okay, John, thank you. Coming up after the break, a U.S. judge's decision today that just might anger the President of the United States. Plus, the arbitrary deadline for making peace in Ukraine. Can it be met? Donald Trump revealed he spoke with China's president this morning about a range of topics, including the war in Ukraine. The conversation comes a day after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held talks with Ukrainian delegates in Geneva, refining the 28-point peace plan. The international community has criticized the U.S. document for being too favorable to Russia. Trump has set a Thanksgiving Thursday deadline for Ukraine to sign on to the deal. A crucial decision today in a U.S. federal court with a judge dismissing criminal cases against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Both cases were plagued with procedural questions. Both individuals were targets of President Donald Trump's anger. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon now on today's ruling and what it means for the U.S. president. Joy.
Sandy, it's a stunning setback for President Donald Trump, who pushed his Justice Department to pursue his political enemies. James Comey was Donald Trump's FBI director in his first term and at the top of the president's political enemies list after he led the investigation into alleged ties between the Trump campaign and Russia. Today, vindication.
The message has to be sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies. I don't care what your politics are. You have to see that as fundamentally un-American.
The case dismissed after federal judge Cameron Curry concluded Lindsay Halligan, Donald Trump's handpicked lawyer who had no experience as a prosecutor, was illegally appointed. Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority to present the indictment, the judge said, concluding they were unlawful exercises of executive power. New York's Attorney General Letitia James says she is heartened by the judge's ruling. In 2022, James successfully sued Trump and the Trump Corporation for millions of dollars in a civil fraud case.
Donald Trump engaged in deceptive business practices
and tremendous fraud.
The president then went after her over a mortgage loan, but the judge also dismissed that case on the same grounds as Comey, saying the prosecutor's appointment was invalid.
The whole thing was improper. I mean, I think this was an obvious one. I would have been shocked if the judge allowed this case to continue. So I think these two cases are doomed, whether it's procedurally or substantively.
Comey's lawyer says he can't be recharged because of the statute of limitations has passed, but it is possible they try and recharge James. The White House says today's judgment will not be the final word. Sandy?
All right, CTV's Joy Malbon in Washington. A plea of not guilty today in a sweeping criminal case involving Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups. The NBA Hall of Famer is accused of conspiring with the mafia to rig illegal poker games. Billups arrived at the federal court in Brooklyn, surrounded by cameras. More than 30 defendants, including members of New York crime families, are accused of orchestrating an elaborate scheme, capitalizing on the star power of pro athletes to lure victims to high-stakes card games and then cheat them out of their money. All of the accused have pleaded not guilty. Several interesting stories to share with you as we head to break. First, actor and singer Donald Glover, also known by his stage name Childish Gambino, has revealed the extent of health issues that forced him to cancel his tour last year.
So when we went to Houston, I went to the hospital and the doctor was like, "You had a stroke."
Glover shared the details of his health scare on stage this weekend at a music festival in Los Angeles, also revealing the stroke led doctors to discover a hole in his heart. Glover says he was sorry to let fans down, but has been recovering after 2 surgeries in the past year. A rare world record that set the bar lower than ever before. Free diving to a new record depth of 86 meters below the surface. Ukrainian freediver Katerina Sidorska surpassed her own previous world benchmark in the discipline without fins. In 3 minutes and 32 seconds, she descended with 10 strokes before entering a free fall and then returned to the surface with 31 strokes, all on a single breath. And this scene in Hawaii will no doubt take your breath away as one of the world's most active volcanoes puts on a show. This time-lapse footage of the Kilauea volcano was captured by the park's observatory. The volcano has been erupting on and off since last December, with fountains of lava sometimes shooting up to 400 meters into the air. Still ahead, why Manitoba educators are giving AI a failing grade for homework. We keep hearing about ways that artificial intelligence is changing our lives for good and bad. Well, the Manitoba School Division has asked teachers to cut down on assignments away from the classroom because some students are using AI not just to help with homework, but to do it for them. CTV's Alex Carpa has that story.
A consistent classroom trend has emerged among students over the last few years.
We noticed that the students were having problems with homeworks.
Alain Laberge believes AI and other online tools have played a role in this shift. The school division he works for recently issued new guidelines for teachers recommending that homework be assigned in moderation while encouraging students to read on their downtime at night.
We have not forbid homework. What we're telling them is the easiest thing and one of the best thing is to read.
Laberge believes AI is impacting how students complete their homework.
They would just simply turn around and ask AI questions and just write down the answers, which we believe is not really useful. It's not the way, it's not critical thinking.
Teachers are being asked to be careful of the types of homework they give out to ensure AI isn't being used as a copying tool. Michael Holden believes it makes sense not to be grading work that is being sent home with students.
When I send homework home, I don't know if the student did that on their own or if they had help from a parent or from a sibling or a tutor or, plugging it into Google or plugging it into a chatbot and asking it to answer the questions for them.
Other professors like David Gerhard say finding a a balance is important.
Finding some way to allow students to learn the power of these tools, but also learn how to do the material themselves is going to be the balance.
We're not trying to demonize AI. That's not what we want parents to understand. It's just like AI and homework is not necessarily a good combination.
For LaBerge, he says he just wants to see students succeed and is confident this policy will keep them on the right path. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Well, today is known as Dumping Day in Nova Scotia, which marks the start of the lobster fishing season.
It's just a big rush. Everybody wants to get to the same spot, so you just try not to bump into anybody and hope for the best.
Nearly 1,500 boats set sail this morning with as many as 12,000 fishers on board. Lobster is a major economic driver for Nova Scotia, with exports totaling $1.3 billion, and that was just last year alone. Canada's new top dog has been crowned. He is Prince, the Pekingese, who was named Best in Show at the Canadian Kennel Club's National Championship Dog Show over the weekend. 834 dogs from across the country competed, representing 135 breeds. After the break, the loss of a reggae legend. Jimmy Cliff inspiring generations.
They rain and they snow on everyone.
The iconic Canadian singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell will receive a Lifetime Achievement Award at next year's Junos in Hamilton. Mitchell will be honored for her fearless and groundbreaking career. The Junos have also announced that Nelly Furtado will be inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Well, today we learned that a legendary singer in the world of reggae music has died. Jimmy Cliff was a Grammy-winning reggae pioneer whose six-decade career featured songs of joy and resilience.
Natalie, I was going to be famous one day.
He was also the star of The Harder They Come in 1972, which is considered Jamaica's most influential film, and a turning point in the global rise of reggae music, which Cliff believed could be a force for change.
Music can highlight awareness, and from that awareness, people can take some kind of action to better the situation. I think that's the role music has played through the ages. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way.
Cliff returned to the charts in the 1990s with his cover of I Can See Clearly Now, which was featured in the John Candy film Cool Runnings. His family says Cliff suffered a seizure followed by pneumonia. Jimmy Cliff was 81 years old. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Your local CTV News is coming up. Omar's here later tonight at 11. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Have a nice evening.
Yes,